So one of the key concepts in Hegemonic is the idea of power and range, and this really drives the whole engine of the gameplay and in the dynamics between the different systems. Let's talk about this in a little bit more detail, starting with the industrial systems. So each industrial location will allow you to build an industrial complex there, and all complexes provide one power, so you can see the little starburst icon has a 1 in it. And all complexes have one range, so the little hexagon shape for sectors with just the 1 dash above it means one range. So one range basically means that the area of influence around this complex where it can initiate its actions is up to 1 sector tile away from its current location. So this complex could reach into any of those different locations. And in the case of complexes, even if there's more complexes built in this sector, it's not going to add up and extend the range any further. So any of these complexes can act out within one range of itself. There are also part of the industrial track are the quantum gates. These have 0 power, 0 range, but what they do is enable you to create adjacency between 2 sectors that are linked by the pair of gates. Switching over to political, only one political embassy is ever built in a political location, and so all embassies have one range, just like complexes, but the power is going to, and you can see the one range there. The power, however, for political embassies is going to vary depending upon the icon and the strength of the location. So here's a power 1 embassy location in the orange faction, a power 2 embassy location in the purple faction, and a power 3 embassy location in the green faction. So you can see the additional hash marks and additional lines radiating out to kind of indicate that higher level of power in addition to the small icon there. Agents have 1 political power and 0 range. So things with 0 range mean they can only target and influence things within the sector that they're located at. So let's look at Marshal. The Marshal system works a little bit differently. You'll build your outposts, which are the triangles, into the red triangle locations. This is a power 1 Marshal outpost, and so a 1 power outpost actually has 0 range, so it can only influence within its own hex where it's located. Here is another outpost, and this is a power 1 to 2 Marshal outpost, which means that you can essentially stack outposts on top of each other, and the range is 0 to 1. So in this configuration, this outpost has 1 power and only 0 range. A player could build another outpost stacking it up on top, and in this case they would now have a power 2 outpost with 1 range that would extend out. And then for the power 3 outpost location, here's 1 to 3, range is 0 to 2. They could build and stack up 3 outposts on this location and could reach out 2 sectors away. The Marshal fleets have power of 1 to 3 depending upon what tier level you're in for your Marshal system, and 0 range just like agents. Now we're going to take a little look at the action cards and a little bit of a breakdown of how the actions work. So there are 6 different action cards. Here's the assault action. This one is number 1 and would go off first. And again, each action allows you to take up to 2 actions of those listed on it. This top action is a destroy action that's going to initiate a conflict and allow you to use one of your base types to attack bases of different types. The subvert action functions much the same way, but the action is a takeover action, so instead of destroying a base of an opponent's, you'll actually take over their base. Then there's the industrialized card, the politicized card, and the martialized card. These are all the core kind of base building cards that players will use to expand their empire. These are all occur at number 2. So at the top of each of these actions is a build, and in this case it's going to let you construct bases and units, and so on the martialized card it's going to let you make outposts or fleets. Each one of these contains a takeover action that's against the base or system of the same type. So this kind of lets you use a fleet to attack somebody else's outposts and fleets. And then all of the action cards shown so far have a basic action on the bottom that's going to either let you take 2 caps or draw and then discard or advance a technology card. So you can take one of those 2 choices. Action card number 4 is the Discover card, and this has some kind of support actions such as Capitalize that lets you collect more caps, Survey, being able to place new sector tiles out onto the board, and then the Research action, which lets you cycle your technology cards in your hand, discarding any that you want and redrawing back up to the hand limit of 5. Now I just can do a couple of example actions here to kind of demonstrate how some of these work. So here's an industrial build. So players started with their industrial complex in their home sector. And so using the build action, that top action listed on the card, there's one range for this complex, so they can reach out into this adjacent sector and they could now build a complex there. That complex immediately provides new range into the next sector, and so they could immediately start building as part of the same action into the next sector. So they could expand down this way, and they could keep going, expanding like that, all as part of the same action. Now, as an alternative, what the player could do, starting again here with their complex in the home sector, they could, as part of the same action or as part of the initial action, build a gate. This gate would create adjacency immediately over to that sector, and as part of the same action, build complexes there and continue to expand out in whatever direction that they chose to from that point. Looking at the politicize action, works very similarly, where the political embassies have a range of 1, so they could build out into adjacent sectors. As you see, again, all as part of the same action, and building agents is part of that same action, so they could then build 2 agents and place them at any of their embassy locations, as you see. Now, another option, and this will be an example of how the second action works, any of the actions that would let you initiate a conflict with a fleet or with an agent allow you to first move that fleet or agent. So in this example, you can see that they have an agent already built, say from a prior turn. They could use that move icon and use their first action to move their agent to a different sector. Now, when agents move, they can be moved to any location in the galaxy from their current spot. However, each time they cross a border between 2 different regions, they have to pay 2 caps to do so. So that move would cost 2 caps. So that was their first action, and so for their second action, they could now build embassies at that agent's location and then build out from there if they wanted to. And lastly, we'll look at how martial construction works. So here's their starting outpost. And so you'll notice that the starting outposts are 1 to 2 power outposts. So a player starting off could immediately build a second outpost on top of their first, and they would now have range that they could reach out, in this case to this 1 to 3 power outpost. They could build a 3 stack, giving them 2 range, and they could build all the way out to that distant location and construct some fleets there if they wanted to. Again, all as part of the same action. As an alternative, in this case, it's a little bit more limited where the player can build, so they may want to use again that takeover action as a way of moving their fleet first. And so here's their fleet, and when fleets move, they can move up to 3 sectors away, and they pay 1 cap for each sector that they move. So that fleet moved 3 sectors, would have to pay 3 caps, but they now have range into that sector and could start building a 3 stack of complexes there, and they could build outwards from there.